this chair straight out of the 70s, and this picture, I pulled it out of the Goodwill bins, and somehow these two 1970s finds are about to become part of the coziest corner in the guest room. So I purchased this solid oak chair on Facebook Marketplace for $10, and as you can see, it's got paint all over it. It's filthy, and boy, it has a really interesting seat cover. But with some paint, fabric, and a little vision, it's about to become cottagecore magic. First step is to detach the seat from the chair before we can clean it and get to sanding it. So I am just using a Phillips head screwdriver, and I am unscrewing the screws from the bottom that are holding that seat pan in place, and the bottom just pops right off once the 3 screws are removed. And the next step is to clean it, and this time I am utilizing window cleaner to clean this. Now, I would not suggest this if you weren't going to sand it and paint it. Since I will be painting it, I am going to go ahead and give this a really good scrub all over and remove all that built up grease and grime, and making sure to go in all the nooks and crannies. And now we're ready to begin our sanding, and this time I am using the 180 grit sandpaper because this does have a varnish or a polyurethane finish on it, and so I need to scuff that up so that we can be sure that the paint will adhere. So I'm going to go ahead and go around this entire chair, and then I'm going to prime it. And I've got all that primer on there. It's all dried. And now I am applying the paint. And the paint I'm using is just some leftover paint from the house. So I've got that whole first coat on, and we're going to go ahead and let that dry. And while that's drying, let's work on the seat cover. And I'm just using a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, to go in and kind of pull it up. And I can pull it all the way out with the pliers. And I'm putting them on white so I don't lose those staples. I have a little dog, and you know, if you have a child or even you don't want your feet, you don't want to step on these. And now let's take a closer look at how the corner is stapled together. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off these staples on the top, and you can see they are stapled over the sides. So that means that when we reupholster this, we're going to do the sides first and the corners last. You know, when you are working on a budget, it is just amazing how just a small piece of fabric and some paint can totally transform it. You won't believe how this chair turns out. So as I pull it back, so this one, oh, there's one. I was going to say the other ones all had a staple right there in the corner. Okay, so I want you to see, just look how many staples this took. Just a lot of staples. So if you are recovering, no shame in using a lot of staples. So we're just going to pull this back and see what we've got going on underneath here. So we've got that pulled apart, and we've got this pad, and we have this MDF, which looks like it's in pretty good shape, and this pad actually still has a good amount of loft. So I've got my batting here, and this is beautiful cotton batting. And what I want to do is to put it over this, and then I'm gonna cut it a little bigger than it needs to be because we want to wrap it around the sides. And if this fabric is too long, we can always cut some more at the end. But you know what? It's really hard if you didn't make it long enough. When in doubt, be a little generous. The next thing I want to do is I am going to use this to cover this seat cushion. And this is one of my personal pillow shams that I am not using anymore. And I thought this gray matelassé would be so perfect on this seat. My sweet friend Dale from Not Too Shabby Chic is the one who suggested using matelassé. She just knows how much I love matelassé. And the other thing is this has these little strings on the back to tie it, and I'm just gonna clip those off because we don't want any bumps in our little seat. So I'm gonna take this and I'm going to flip it over. I think we wanna make sure our pad is lined up straight. And I wanna make sure that pad is over the edge of the MDF because we do not want it to be sharp where somebody is sitting. And it's gonna be nice because we have this cotton batting and we have fabric. I'm going to take my staple gun and I'm just gonna put one in the middle. I've probably had it for over 25 years. So I will go ahead and put a link to a staple gun in the description below if you are looking for one. So now before I put the rest of the staples in, just want to check it because, you know, we want it tight, but we don't want it overly tight. So I think that's looking pretty good. Okay. Okay, there we go. And if your staples are sticking out, we can just take a hammer after the fact and just nail them in a little bit tighter. So I'm just gonna double check again and see how that's looking. L-O-V-E, that's looking good. I'm just gonna continue. And into the corner. So now onto the sides. And it's going to be the same thing. Pull that to the middle. Okay. That's looking great. And now I'm just going to finish stapling. Now what I'm going to do is cut off some of this batting back here, which is really just some extra bulk. And we especially don't need the extra bulk in the corner, so let's go ahead and trim some of this away. This side has less fabric than this side, so I'm even going to cut this fabric down a bit. No one's going to see this, so if your cuts are not perfectly straight, this is underneath the chair, okay? So no one's going to see it until they go to recover it someday. So don't worry about that. The biggest part is you want to make sure the front of it, the part that people will see, looks the way that you want it to look. So what you want to do is kind of tuck and fold over and pull. I'm gonna go ahead and put one there. Okay, you can see that. It looks pretty good, right? So, and again, I'm just gonna remove this. Okay, and I'm gonna do the one on the opposite side next, and then I'll continue like that. Stay in place. And now I'm just gonna finish up the last two corners. And we are ready to attach the seat to the chair, and my sweet husband is helping me again. There are 3 screws that need to be put back into place on the chair to hold that seat pad in place. And look how it turned out. Oh my gosh, I just love it. And just wait till you see the desk that I also got on Facebook Marketplace. And we're going to paint that too. And they're going to go together and start the cozy corner. And here's the desk I purchased for $40. And it is very cream. I know it shows white out here because we are in the light, but in the bedroom, it was so much more cream than the white that I have accented in the room. And once we get this all painted, we're gonna put it inside and I'll show you the room and the beginning of our cozy corner. So I've got my electric sander out and I have the 220 grit sandpaper. And what I learned from the last time is that there's holes in the sander and there's also holes on the sandpaper disc. And if you line those up really well, it allows the machine to suck up even more of the dust. We're ready to get sanding. I'll put it on 2. And what I'm doing is just slowly gliding it over the entire piece and not pressing too hard. And don't forget about the edges. You want to make sure that you go over all the edges too. And then we're ready to move on down to the legs of the table. And once you've got that all sanded on the legs and everywhere else, you want to go ahead and wipe off all of that light dust that you have created with the sanding. And I made sure to pay extra attention in the sanding on the corners and also on the ridges so that they would look a little more distressed. I'm using just a microfiber cloth here, but you can certainly use a vacuum or whatever you would like. So now we're ready to get started with the paint. And the first thing I'm doing is taking a paint that has a primer already based in it. It is white, and I am tinting it with a little bit of black chalk paint, and I'm stirring it around really well with a fork to make sure it's all blended. And now we're ready to begin painting, and I'm just using a chip brush here, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. It's just, I bought in bulk on Amazon, and I'm just using long strokes to go up and down that leg, and then I am going side to side around all of the little spindle parts or the more intricate parts to make sure that I get in all the nooks and crannies. And I do have one tip for you, which is to make sure that you have enough paint mixed up if you are mixing your own color to do your whole project, because it is hard to replicate the exact same color. And so now what I'm doing is painting the top of the desk, since I've painted all of the legs, and again using long and broad strokes. And you can see here that I am walking around the table to make sure that I am able to reach all of the areas so that I don't miss any. And I'm going to continue to do that until the entire top of the desk is painted. Then I was ready to paint the front of the desk and the drawer, and I am just painting over the front of it. I tried to remove the drawer before I painted it, but I was not successful, and so I'm going to have to ask my husband to help me when he gets a moment. But in the meantime, I'm just painting over the rest of the table. So it's already dry, the first coat, so it's definitely going to need 2 coats, but I am going to flip it over and make sure I got
all those pieces on the underside.
All right, now we're ready to begin painting the underside of the table with its first coat. And I'm going to do that and also look for areas that I might have missed when the table was standing upright, like on the legs. And we'll go ahead and give it a full coat and then let it dry. Oh, hooray. My husband came by and he was able to take the drawer out for me. And so I'm just going back over the front and making sure that I'm painting the edge on the inside of the drawer and then also the face of the drawer as well as all of the sides of the drawer and then the trim on the top. And now that that first coat has dried, I am going back over it with a 220 grit sandpaper, giving it just a light sanding. I'm going to wipe it again with the tack cloth, and then I'm going to apply a second coat to the entire piece. And once that second coat is dry, I am going to hand distress this. So I am taking my 180 grit sandpaper this time, and I am going over the grooves in the legs and the places around the edge that I would like to add or reveal a little bit of the wood underneath. What I really like about lightly distressing an item is that if you bump it and it gets chipped or something happens to the paint finish, you are not so worried about it because it already has that natural distress look. And now, just for the final step, it's to seal it. I am applying a coat of white wax over the entire thing and letting that set up. We are ready to start working in the room, and this is the guest room, the before.
It's primarily just had this bed and these two nightstands next to it. Bring the desk in, and my intention is putting the desk right over there. Oh my gosh, it turned out so cute. I think it looks great over here in this corner.
And it was really important for me to find a small enough desk to fit in this room because my son and my daughter-in-law both have to work sometimes when they come. And I want them to feel so comfortable. And they are coming at the end of this month. So that is why it's so important for me to work on fixing up the room.
So I used to have the recliner in that corner, and I tried putting the desk over here, which that worked great, but with the recliner over here, it was really hard to pass. So this leaves much more room. I'm even gonna move the desk over to the left just a bit more, and I think that'll be a great place for it. And that chair looks so cute there. Doesn't that look awesome with the desk? And I love how our little upholstery job went with the matelassé.
Isn't it amazing how drab can turn to fab with just a little bit of paint and fabric? And I haven't forgotten about that picture. So stay tuned and keep on watching because that is the biggest transformation of all.
So the first thing that I've added are these two old books that I got from the bins. And I'm going to put this sweet little vase with just a pop of greenery in it in the corner to liven that up.
And I was doing some spring cleaning and I found this bedding in our closet. And I had forgotten about it. So it was so great to take it out and use it. And that was all for $0 too.
I've got those two pictures above the bed. The beautiful artwork was done by one of my friends. I've added a matelassé comforter over that chair, and I think it softens that a lot.
And I think the nightstand could use something too.
I added that plant right over there, and that plant is also from the bins. And so that plant was definitely under $2 and it just needed a lot of bending into shape. But I love that. But what I think is missing is a picture above the desk. So let's work on that.
And who knew that this picture frame from the 70s from the Goodwill bins would turn into the perfect piece of art? So stick with me and I'll tell you how I did it.
And this is just black chalk paint, and I will put a link to this in the description below.
So the first thing we're going to do is paint all the gold insets in the middle with the black chalk paint. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It takes about a coat and a half to get it all done.
So you can see that I've got all the black painted. And now what I'm going to do is work on painting gray into this spot right here. And this is the same gray color that I used to paint the chair. And as you can see, I'm definitely going to need at least 2 coats, maybe more. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put the first coat on and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. Okay, I've got that first coat on. And so now I'm going to go ahead and set this to dry and then we can apply the second coat. I've got all my paint on here and it looks like it's going to need yet one more coat. Now just know if you put down a nice thick coat where you are doing your cut in, then you don't have to necessarily go over the cut in part, which saves you time, and you can just do the wide part. So I'm just going to go up to that, but I'm not going to go over that cut in line over there on the top, and that should save me some time. I've got my first coat of the chalk paint on. I've got the 3 coats really of the gray and 1.5 of the black. And so it just looks like the chalk paint is going to need one more coat. So I'm just going to rough it up just a little bit. The last step is cover this with white wax to seal it because chalk paint does not have a sealer and I need to take off all of this paint first. I've got my white wax here and I'm going to put it over my whole frame. And I've got a cloth here, and the one I really want to just go over with a little bit more to remove is the black. I want it to look a little bit older, not just so freshly painted. So what I did was I purchased a digital print from Etsy and I printed it onto my 12 by 12 paper. I have a 12 by 12 printer, and so it's a little wider than this board. What came with it was printed with this, and it is like a signed like reproduction, and I don't know, it looks like it was just printed on this board, but it is really yellowed and it's not very valuable. I am gonna just keep it over there just in case, and I'm going to mount my item on this side. I'm just gonna use some double stick tape to put it on here. Just lining my print up. Pull these out, and then I am gonna try and just use staples from the staple gun to hold them in. I think I have all the old staples pulled out, and can put this in. Look how nice that looks. Oh my gosh, I-L-O-V-E it. I definitely love it. And here is how that picture turned out. Oh my goodness, I am in love. I cannot believe that that started off as the frame that we got from the Goodwill bins, also for only a couple dollars.
This is exactly why I love repurposing old finds and getting things from the thrift store and secondhand and turning them from drab to fab. And that makes me feel so good. I've had so much fun creating this cozy and budget-friendly guest room, and I hope you like how it all turned out. And if you like budget makeovers and thrifting, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you won't miss my next project. Let me know if you have any comments. Thank you.